Hi folks, if you've been watching lately you'll see that this knife was lent to me to go around the pass round group, which it will be doing, but you would think that they would be the absolute king of the pass round this time, but I have to tell you that that's really not the case. Not absolutely. I mean, it might turn out to be, but it doesn't have a free run. Granted, it was up against the Lansky UK Legal and a couple of charades in a particular package, but also in the package, and far more interestingly, was a Medford Slim MIDI, and if that wasn't enough, a Chris Reeves Incosi. So it's not only is it it's not the only high-end knife in this pass round group. It's not even the biggest, it's not even the broadest, it's not even the best known. So we will be looking at all three of these knives, and I'm going to do some little bits of comparison, but today I'm just going to start off with just looking at one, and this is the Medford Slim MIDI. Now, this knife will be familiar to many of my viewers because many of you will also watch Paddy. Probably most of you will watch Paddy potato peelers, and you will know that this is the knife that he bought with some money that he got last year. And this is pretty much his pride and joy, and I can understand why. This is a really, really top-end, nice knife. This current knife comes from Medford Knife and Tool, which was a company founded by Greg Medford in Phoenix, Arizona, I believe, in 2010, as I see from my notes there. Now, he's known for making chunky, solid knives. The Praetorian is, I think, the best known of his knives, and they are thick and heavy and chunky. So when he calls this Slim MIDI, you might expect that it's going to be a small and light knife, but it's not. This is a good size knife, but at the same time, it's not a pocket anchor either. This is a good quality, usable, carryable knife. The blade is made of, well, the S on here tells you that it's made of S30V, I believe. It doesn't actually say what the blade steel is, but I believe it's S30V. You use a kind of a code rather than putting the blade steel on there. The handles are titanium, they're milled and blue anodized. I hope the colour comes out okay. It's quite a nice colour blue, but it doesn't sort of jump out at you. Against the blue background here, I think it looks slightly more grey, but it is very definitely blue. In terms of construction, it has a nice chunky pivot, and these are not thumb studs, these are external stop posts, and it has stop pins. There's one on either side which lock up against this chunky titanium frame. You'll also see, because not often these bits might be internal, so you wouldn't necessarily see them. Like in the Chris Reeves, the stop pin is inside here, and these bits of the handle completely cover the detent ball track, but you can actually see where the detent ball sits and the track. Now, Greg Medford likes his knives to be run dry without any oil, and so maybe it's just as well. You can see that, and you can make sure it's kept nice and clean. There aren't bits of grit getting in there causing trouble, because the other thing about them is you can't take his knives to bits. You need a proprietary tool, and even if you do have one or make one, you void your warranty by taking it to bits, which is difficult, but it's not the only knife company ever to do that. Is it Rockstead? Although actually the Rockstead Higo you are allowed to take apart. It's one of only two knives in their range that you can, and the others you're not allowed to. Well, not allowed to without voiding the warranty. It's your knife, you can take it to bits if you like. Now, so in terms of this, has a nice chunky look to it. It's a good chunky blade with a very sort of marked sabre grind, which is hollow ground, by the way, and this really deep, fuller, nice big bold Medford knife and tool symbol on it. On the other side, again, you have the same, obviously with the same grind, but you've also got the same big fuller, and then you have a product code. I take it tells you something about the knife, and unfortunately I don't know what the code means, 86-005, and there's nothing very obvious about that. It's the same on the handle there, so I don't know if it's just a serial number or whatever, but you know, it wasn't made in 1986, or it was, nor was it made in 2005, so they're not related like that. Now, it has a frame lock design, milled clip. Milled clip is quite attractive. It's not the best clip in the world. It has a little bit of a little gap between it and the handle, and I'm not getting that very well in the light. So it's, you know, it goes over your pocket, your trouser pocket, but it's not the best in the world. But it's nice. You know, it's nice enough. It's difficult to look at this knife and it's quite easy to be critical in some ways, but actually to not really mean it, because this is a really nice knife in hand. It's a good looking knife and it works. It's a real worker. Now, I haven't, you know, gone and cut up a room full of carpet as Paddy has done with this knife. This knife has cut up a room full of carpet in Paddy's hands, sharpened up again, and it's beautiful. You know, I've only used, you know, cut a little piece of paper just to make sure that it's sort of working and that the edge is nice and clean and so forth, but it's not the factory edge, so even if it wasn't, it would only tell me about Paddy's sharpening abilities, which as it turns out are very, very good, but if it, you know, it wouldn't tell me anything else. The only thing that I really genuinely do not like about this knife, and it Paddy kind of warned me, and he was right, is the unlocking. Now, for one, it's quite difficult to get in there because you have to get into that side there, and of course being left-handed or left-hand abled, I'm actually right-handed. That's quite tricky. I'm trying to do this on camera actually. I mean, I'm struggling to get that in. If you press on the back of the blade at the same time, it's almost impossible. But it does open, you know, it does work. Now, or it does close rather. But in the real world, when you're not trying to look through a camera, it is perfectly doable, but it's not comfortable on the end of your finger. And it could have done with a little bit of a cutout on this side, and it could done with that edge not being quite so hard on the other side. Is it suffering from a bit of lock stick? It might be. I mean, that might be part of the problem as well. But honestly, that's the only thing I really don't like about this knife. And in terms of UK legality, now, yes, it is not a legal carry knife in the UK. I mean, partly because we've got a 3.5-inch blade, and secondly because it locks. But if you are using this as a user knife for work, there's no flicker, no flipper. And that means that now, I don't think it's been undeniably confirmed yet by a court action, but it would look as though the latest iteration of the Offensive Weapons Act 2019 amendments are trying to outlaw flippers. They deliberately do not outlaw thumb studs, and these are not really thumb studs. But a knife that can be opened like that is specifically allowed. So there's no flickiness on this. There is a very small possibility one could try to define it as a gravity knife, because you can do the spider drop. Don't know if there's room to do it in here, but the spider drop, you know, you pick it up like that, and well, probably can do it if I give it a wee bit of a flick. So you can open it like that, but I think, to be honest, it's not even designed to be opened like that, and you certainly can't, I can't flick it open from closed with a with a bit of wrist, or certainly not with just gravity. Anyway, actually I'm managed to do that behind the camera now. Yeah, I mean, you can't flick it open, it won't flick open like that. So I think in terms of UK legality, nobody's going to come knocking at Paddy's door and say, I understand you've got an illegal knife in here, I want to search your house. Which, apart from anything else, you just don't want at any time. It's just not a pleasant experience. So I think this is a really good knife, and actually I like this knife a lot. I would like in my collection one day to have a Medford, and if I do, I would very much like it to be this model, because the Praetorians and things are just, they're perhaps nice as collector pieces, but I can't really see them as an everyday user knife, certainly not for me. But I could see this being used as a user knife, even if I can't carry it every day out in the street. In terms of size comparisons, as I say, it's got a 3.5 inch blade, so it's half an inch too big to be UK legal. Here we are up against the Victorinox Pioneer X 93mm knife, and obviously it's bigger in every dimension, every which way you look at it. In terms of a sort of benchmade work knife, work knife, which is benchmade, 940. It's very, very similar in terms of length. It's not undissimilar in terms of thickness, slightly thicker than the 940, but not hugely. In terms of blade thickness, I think it's really very similar in terms of stock. So, despite it being a big Medford chunky knife, it's actually quite reasonable and restrained in its dimensioning, and as I say, in the hand it actually is it's a good user knife. You've two options in terms of using it. You can carry it like this to give you sort of maximum length of the blade, or you can move it down here to give you maximum amount of handle and control and get you quite close to the point for doing some work. So it's a well designed, well laid out knife. It's not just a big throw every chunk of steel at it and hope everybody likes it. This is actually a well thought out, well designed knife. Really, really good knife. In terms of my preferred UK carry, obviously it's much bigger, but that's not a surprise. And in terms of, I'll be seeing these side by side anyway, but in terms of the Inkosi, which I think is a little bit bigger than a Sebenza, but not a huge amount bigger. The Inkosi is a little bit longer, the Medford's a little bit taller, the Inkosi is a little bit thicker, and in terms of weight, the Inkosi is 3/4 of an ounce heavier. So this is actually quite a bit lighter than the Inkosi. In fact, of these three top-end knives that we're going to be looking at here, including the Rockstead, the Medford is the lightest of the three, which might surprise a few people. I'll not tell you which is the heaviest, but the other two are fairly close. Anyway, I think that's probably enough to be said about this. We'll see it again in terms of comparisons with those other two knives, and which one might be considered the better or the best of the knives. Though I'm not sure there is an absolute winner. That's a little bit of a spoiler, but there are three really excellent knives, and I'm going to throw in a fourth to just complicate matters just a little bit more, of these sort of big work knives. So thank you very much. If you like this, please hit the thumbs up button. If you would like to see more of this, and that in Cozy and the Rockstead, and a couple of other things that are coming along, please subscribe, hit the notifications bell, and I look forward to seeing you again with those. Thank you very much. Bye.